Hi guys, hey, it's Dawn. I am getting ready to plant my tomatoes, and I wanted to go over some informational things about tomatoes and how they grow, and how to plant them into the ground. The ones that I'm planting today are determinate tomatoes, and what those are, determinate tomatoes grow determinately. So what that means, you put them into the ground and they are predetermined on approximately how many they're going to produce and the growth of the tomato plant. I am growing today a Floridad and a Rio. The Rio tomato is very similar to a Roma tomato, same family. They are about, 3 to 4 inches long, and they are very hardy, red inside. Roma tomato and the Rio, as the one I have here, they are used they are great for salsas. They are good for spaghetti, diced tomatoes. They're also good for a tomato paste and a tomato sauce. And that's what I'm using them for. My husband really likes spicy salsa, so that's what I will be growing the Rio tomato for. And the Floridad is more of a round, doesn't look like a Roma or a Rio tomato in that family, but they do share similar things for canning and preserving. They are kind of meaty. They are a little bit on the mild sweet side, and they do not retain a lot of water. So that's what I'm going to use these for. Now, the reason I'm using two determinate tomatoes this year, I just did the Rio, and then I did a lot of indeterminate last year. The reason I'm doing the determinates is I don't have a whole lot of trellis space this year because I'm trellising a lot of melons as well, and trellising some other things. I've got peas and some other things that I want to trellis. So to alleviate some of those and to grow more tomatoes, I'm actually growing more determinate tomatoes than I did last year. Now, the indeterminate tomato I did grow last year. I think I grew 10 different varieties of them, but they're fun. They're fun tomatoes, and a lot of them, just the color and texture, they all have different tastes, and some are very juicy, some are very meaty. There are a few tomatoes that I grew last year, and I want to say it was the ox heart, and it's a ox heart. It was pink, and it looks like a heart, and the taste was okay. I didn't think it stood out, and I didn't grow it again this year because the ox heart, on where it grew, like on the tops, like apples have the ridges. Well, these also, and the humps or ridges, they were very, like hard. They weren't juicy and tender like the regular tomato was as you got into the ox heart tomato. So when I went to preserve and make different things out of it, I had to cut them off, and I lost part of the tomato. Some, it was half the tomato, and I really wasn't impressed with it, so I decided not to grow it. There were a few other ones that I didn't enjoy growing last year, I did pick 6 new different ones this year. That just means that I'm trellising a lot less. I think last year with the 10 different varieties that I did, I want to say that I grew 8, about approximately 8 of each of them, because I had a lot of tomato plants last year. Then this year I cut down, but I did more determinants, so that way I had more room. Now my indeterminants, like I said, I think I have about 5 different varieties, and they are along the lines of me being able to preserve and can. What I wanted to do today is just focus on getting my determinate ones planted today, and another time I'll talk about the indeterminate. But the definition, or the indeterminate tomato, it grows indeterminately. You can grow it on a 10-foot trellis and it will grow 10 feet as long as you take care of it. And it also has suckers. Tomatoes have suckers, and you want to make sure that you prune it very well. It needs a lot of air circulation, and they are more prone to diseases versus your determinants. So that's why I kind of went the route more determinants than I did indeterminants. So today, determinants do not need their suckers pruned either. So that's another reason. They're less maintenance than the indeterminate ones. And the 2 that I grew, now as far as growing an indeterminate and a determinate tomato, they are the same. The lower you get the tomato stem and roots into the ground, all these little fuzzy white little prongs, they're all roots. So the deeper that you get them, the better root system, the stronger root system that you will have. So that isn't any different from the determinate versus the indeterminate. Now, some people will dig a hole or dig this way and let their tomato plant grow. They'll lay it on its side and they'll let it grow up, and then you can grow it longer into the ground. That's one way. Another way is I normally just prune a few of these bottom ones off and then plant them as deep as I can get them. So that's the way that I do mine. Tomato plants are very meaty. They do need a lot of nutrients, and the fertilizer that I pretty much use for everything works for my tomatoes, and I use a 12-12-12. It's pretty balanced. I water mine once a week, but this week that we're having, I have had to, even with them in these, I have had to water them nightly for the last 3 days because it has been so hot that by the time the day is over, they're kind of leaning, my dog Harley, they're kind of leaning over and just dying of thirst. So I have been doing them every day in the evening. You don't want to water your tomato plants in the dead of heat. The other thing with tomatoes is when you pick tomatoes, you want to make sure that you either pick them right before, if you know it's going to rain, because they're going to retain a lot of those flavors, and if it's a sweet tomato, it'll have that sweet flavor to it. So you want to make sure that when you pick your tomatoes at the time before that, they'll have more flavor. So in my bed, I have got a 5x8 that I am putting them in. So I'm going to do mine about a foot apart. So that way I do cage mine. I don't have to trellis the determinate ones, but because they still grow pretty good size, and with growing a lot, my Rio tomatoes last year grew so many tomatoes that they ended up, some started to fall over. I had to cage them. So it is a good idea. If you don't, maybe some sticks, bamboo sticks, or some 1x4 1x1 poles, something of that nature. But I'm going to be planting mine a foot apart, so I should get roughly 40, and I think I have 38 of the Rio in the Floridad. And the Floridad, to add to that, they have, I'm pretty sure that they are heat resistant as well, so they can stand some heat, and so can the Rio. So those are the reasons I chose those two, because like I said, this week we are in the mid 80s, and yesterday I came out and I told you they were sagging over. It was like a dog with a tongue hanging out. They were so thirsty. Pre-soak my soil just because it has been so dry before I put them in. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of the fertilizer in each of my holes, but also, which really, really helped me last year, and thanks to Jessica over at Roots and Refuge, she drops a egg into her hole and just taps it open, cracks it, and then leaves it in there. It gives it a lot of nutrients, and not gonna say I live by it, but guess what? It worked last year, and I don't know the difference if I didn't do it this year, but I don't really want to like test that, so I'm still going to drop an egg in each one of my tomato holes. I have got 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and 4 inch. I've got my Rio. Now this is approximately, let's see, about 10 inches. So I'm going to go out. A lot of manure in these beds, so I keep running into, I had to go from my metal one to my plastic shovel, just due to hoping that I was not going to split any more worms in half, because I'm having success with worms in my beds due to the soil with the manure in it. So I want to make sure that I'm using the plastic one in hopes that it saves any worms if I by chance come across any. This hole is about 6 inches deep. Got my 12. I'm going to stick about a tablespoon in there. One egg. And I am going to stick my tomato right in there. And I am going to get it up far enough to that last little nodule, that last little leaf. And there we go. My first tomato in the ground. It is my Rio tomato. Give them another good soak once I'm all finished with the whole bed. And like I said, I should be able to get all my determinate tomatoes in this one bed. So I hope that you guys have learned something from this video. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Please. Have a great day. Happy gardening. Bye-bye.